Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. This is Dr. Rob Kiltz, and I'm really excited to be speaking with Rina Ahluwalia and the 5 minute body. But also, you're really spreading out and talking more and more about carnivore and coaching. And I'm really excited that you're going to share your thoughts and ideas on reducing stress. And about work and diet and lifestyle, emotions and trauma, and so much more. And simply a great welcome to Rina Alawalia from Australia. Yes,
Yes, I'm from Sydney, Australia, other side of the world. Yes.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, we're all so connected in this world. That's the beauty of it today. My partner just flew off to Paris for a few days, for 5 days, and here I am. I came down to Sarasota, so we each get our
Beautiful.
alone time from each other, which is so important for us to do. But tell us a little bit about what you've been up to and about the 5 minute body. But let's see. I did a live with you or an interview with you once, but we haven't done an interview on my side.
Yeah,
So
so I know a lot about you and everything that you're passionate about. But yeah, a bit about me. I have gone through the struggle of finding health and finding optimal health over 20 years, actually. So I actually started completely the wrong way. And I think most of us start the wrong way. We listen to what's in the media, what's in the news, high carb, low fat, lots of exercise. And that really messed up with my hormones. I did deal with an eating disorder called night eating syndrome, where I would wake up in the middle of the night, 1 or 2 a.m., had no idea that I was eating, and I would eat the majority of my calories in that span of time.
is that a little like
And
sleepwalking? Is that sort of you're not awake to understand or know what you're doing? Because I haven't heard of that before.
yeah. So when I speak with like Dr. Anthony Chafee, Dr. Sean Baker, and even Kelly Hogan, it's something that is getting more well known these days, but not by everybody. So to answer your question, it's not exactly sleepwalking, but you are not in control of the behavior. So it's not like I can make a conscious decision that I do not want to eat. And what I would be reaching for would be the carbs, the sugars, anything that was quite sweet. So I dealt with that for about 10 years from the time
Wow.
that I was 18 to the time that I was about 30. So a bit over 10 years.
So it is we're going for the feel good stuff, the stuff that
Yes,
sort of makes our brain feel calm and at ease.
yes.
What where do you think that comes from? What's your thoughts on the sort of the seeds of that?
Well, I think that the whole thing when it comes to so this is quite an interesting topic because I'm doing a dopamine detox and I love these digital minimalisms and just minimizing our life in terms of all these external stimulants. So where it comes from, especially when it comes from carbs and sugars and all the toxins that we actually ingest, it actually releases a dopamine response in our brain. And that's how we actually get stimulated to want to have more. And it's actually initiating a calming effect as well, especially if we're under eating or if we're not getting enough nutrients from our diet. Our body is very smart in terms of wanting to actually get those nutrients from somewhere, but it wants to get it in a way that it knows best and to elicit a dopamine response. So definitely when it comes to carbs and sugars, that's a great way to get that hit of dopamine and that you just feel good. But then the next day with a night eating syndrome, you're almost thinking, why did I do that? Why don't I have control of this problem? Because I was trying to control all these other things in my life. And then the body just kind of goes haywire in terms of doing certain things to maintain homeostasis. So that's my take on it. But I'm sure that you have a perspective as well.
Well, where does part of it is, what are the real drives in life and survival? And you sort of touched on that. Really, our brain, our body wants to be fed because that's survival in so many ways. And
Yes.
and so wherever we can find it, and whatever our habit is for food, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing on the coaching And I know you have a degree in coaching, a certification that sort of gives you a little bit more experience and knowledge in this, and maybe you could share a little bit about that and where you're going with that.
Yeah, sure. So I actually studied finance and economics in a university. So it's not related to actually health, but through my journey, through actually experience of coaching, trying to help others, and also trying to heal myself, I was just able to cultivate certain habits that we need to do just to achieve health. Because I think that we definitely know how to achieve health, and we know and we hear a lot of information from the media and outside in terms of what health should look like, but the actual science around what actually makes a difference, but most importantly putting it into practice. So where I come in is the how to of how to achieve optimal health. I love the carnivore lifestyle because I've been doing that for around about a year, and that has really, and I know with you as well, that's really supercharged my health in terms of getting away from restriction, getting away from addiction. So these are the things that I teach my clients, and with the coaching and with my programs as well, specifically around carnivore, but also overall health. As you're saying, to live our best life most happily, because there's two things that matter in life: experiences and people. And the
Connections.
connections, right? And the rest is, how can we actually live our best life the most easiest way possible, the most affordable way possible to achieve our best life. The rest of it is to give us energy to have those connections, experiences, and be around people that we actually love.
So how do we know it? Because it's sort of, you have to go through the pain and the
Yes.
challenges and the trauma in order to, and then to get the sort of run in to, or it's almost serendipity that we all sort of are connecting in this world with these ideas of carnivore. Because I became a physician because I was learning to help people in the direction I was learning to help people, and I came to learn that much of it was wrong. And yet here we are talking about carnivore, which is the opposite of what I was taught, and I'm sure the same way, because our experts have taught us the opposite.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Everything that I've done in terms of, so I actually did a certified fitness. So I was a certified fitness trainer. Everything that we were taught around diet, everything around food, exercise, how we should move is completely wrong. And I say wrong, it's a very strong word, because how do we know that we're right? But if we go from an evolution point of view in terms of 3 million years ago, and we look at how we were eating, how we were moving, that's a good indicator of how we should be moving and eating today for our optimal health. So there's no kind of one size fits all, but definitely if it's a predominantly meat-based diet, I think that's winning in most cases. And if you're moving, like standing like I am now, walking, lifting heavy things, it's so simple and it's free. So that's where my 5 minute body comes from, because it doesn't cost anyone any money. No gym memberships, no calories, portions, thinking about fats and proteins and ratios. We don't need to think about all this stuff, because it's all inbuilt in eating meat, moving, loving people that we love, doing the things that we love, and that's how we can enjoy our life. So it's very simple.
it is simple, but it is so opposite. And so I think, like you, I was paleo, then keto, then
Yes,
carnivore, and it took a
me too.
transition of time.
Exactly.
What type of physical ailments did you suffer from that you can share with those that are listening today and those who will listen later on?
Yeah, absolutely. Depression, anxiety, severe OCD. Like literally, I could not leave the house without fixing, touching things, making sure that everything's off, making sure that everything is perfect. Control issues. And this is a thing that I was talking to other doctors about, which was, how does carnivore heal all these? These are mental ailments. So I didn't have any physical, things like pain or that kind of thing. I did have a lot of intestinal bloating, a lot. Anything that I would eat, like with regards to vegetables, sweeteners, I'd have a lot of bloating anytime that I would eat that. So it was more the mental transformation in terms of how I was thinking, how I could more think clearly in terms of making decisions and just feeling better, feeling more happier. That's the main thing that I actually felt from doing keto, but definitely on carnivore. Because even when I did keto, I was eating the sugar substitutes, the almond flour cookies, all these keto approved foods that was feeding my sugar addiction. So it was only from cutting all that out and focusing on what we need to eat. That's where I think that's where the healing came from. And prioritizing saturated fat. Extremely important.
Well,
Extremely important.
we have some questions already, and I'm going to jump down to so someone it's a shout out from Hudson Valley, New York, where I get my duck grease, duck fat, and my duck liver from Hudson Valley foie gras. So they're amazing. Let's see. Oh, someone's Liana's confused on how to measure a 2-to-1 fat to protein per meal. How can you help share how you would handle that question?
Okay, so the very simple way that I coach my clients is if you're focusing on the ruminant animals, so 80-20 or fatty cuts of beef and lamb, if you're eating egg yolks, butter, salmon, your protein to fat ratio is already in that. So even if you were to put up MyFitnessPal, which is an app that you can track food and macronutrients, just scan the barcode of, like, say, for example, a beef or a lamb, and put in a portion of, say, a pound. You will see those ratios are naturally there, and we don't need to actually calculate these. So that's the proof that just simply choosing these foods will actually have your 1-to-1 or your 2-to-1 protein ratio quite naturally. Now, if you do want that 2-to-1 protein ratio, simply add some butter. Simply add a little bit of fat, then you're just upping your fat intake. The way that you know that you're having enough fat, too much or too little, is by your stools. Simple. Also by your energy as well, and by your feeling of satiation after a meal.
So tell us about those stools in a sense. How do we know? What's the marker?
So this might be a bit too much information,
But
but
I think we all do it. So it is really such an important topic.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have runny stools, a lot of runny stools, it's an indicator that you could be eating too much fat. If it's really hard and very hard to pass through, it could be an indicator that you're eating too little fat. But typically when I coach people on, so I have a program called Bulletproof Carnivore, and it's a transition program to get people from where they're at, whether it's eating cookies, pies, cakes, going to paleo, going to keto, and then to carnivore. But simply when you're starting carnivore, focusing on those ruminant meats, beef and lamb, start there. And then track your energy and track your stools. We also don't need to be going to the bathroom every single day.
So you do less on carnivore, even 1 to 2 times a week for many people. And one of the important things is don't force it. Just it'll come out. And that's that's sort of like, I haven't had bowel movement today. I need fiber, and I need these medications, and I need to force it out, which is causing more problems. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think the main thing that we have to really question in life is the information that we're getting. Firstly, around fiber. Even secondly, around the amount of times that we have to go to the bathroom, because all these things are natural. We don't need to think about it. We don't need to force it, as you're saying. And especially when we're eating ruminant meats, we're going to be absorbing 99% of the nutrients. So when we eat, we're eating for nutrients so that we have energy. So if you don't need to actually eliminate waste, because that's what poop is, it's waste that's not actually used from the food that we ingest, then there's no need to go to the bathroom.
So we're thinking way too much.
I
We're
think so.
thinking too much.
I
Right?
think so. I think so. And you know what? Anyone watching this, I went through 20 years of overthinking. I still overthink. Absolutely.
I went through
Because
55 years of overthinking.
I'm glad. I think that through decades and decades, we have gone through overanalyzing, overthinking. Are we doing this right or wrong? And I know that you love this idea around, let's get away from the labels. Because if we attach ourselves to something is called something, even if we're eating carnivore, if we're eating keto, if we're doing things right or wrong, it's not necessarily that how do we know that something is right or wrong? It's based on our perception or how by other people see it. So keeping
If
it very, very simple, very simple.
thinking is harmful, and
Yeah,
instinct ultimately is where we came from. And you mentioned something about our it's our, we're not born with our diseases, although many are today because moms are eating the toxic plants, which ultimately are deadly to all humans in any frequency or significance. And so, but for the millions of years, we look at we've accomplished because we were very, very capable and focused as human beings, likely eating a animal-based and not a plant-based diet. So all those things, OCD, ADHD, dyslexia, depression, anxiety, suicide, and many of the psychological disorders are not natural.
absolutely. I think also coupled with the diet and the toxins, I think also the fact of our mindset. And I know that we're combined in this in, having faith and connection with people. Because yes, eating a carnivore way is absolutely great. And that's the way that we should be eating from a primal perspective. But we need to change our thoughts. We need to gear our thoughts to thinking, as you said, you started our conversation saying it's a great morning, it's a great evening, it's a great day. Because it is a great day. Every moment in our life is a great day, is a great
Eh,
moment.
Faith and belief in that highest power within all of us is so important. And troubles and challenges and problems are the nature of life. They're the gifts and the presents that help us grow and learn more. And we connect probably more so because of these things, which is such it's a joy in essence. And the hard part is when you react with like, oh my God, wow, you got a problem. That's where we find people like yourself and so many people in this great amazing way that we get to communicate around the world. And so how do you personally instill that habit of mindfulness and changing your thoughts? Any particular hints for those that are listening and watching?
So the first thing I start off in the morning when I have my coffee, and I have my coffee right here, is just doing 5 minutes of it's meditation, but it's mostly around centering my mind around gratitude. Having those questions around what are you grateful for this morning? It could be something around connection with people. It could be something that you experienced, even small things like being able to walk, being able to breathe easily. My dad has Alzheimer's. So even being us able to speak easily and clearly, these are all the things that we need to be grateful for that I think in this day and age we really take for granted. So starting our mornings off or even our evenings with some mindfulness or meditation, again, it's a label, but it's just gearing our thoughts towards thinking there's so many great things in our life. How can I go find it and see it? So that's the starting point. I have affirmation cards that I look at every single day. So my affirmation card for this week is I'm willing to change. And I have that next to my bed. So every morning I make the bed when I see I'm willing to change. I say, yes, I'm willing to change. Another affirmation is I like to do hard things. I love hard things.
Mhm.
So it's gearing our mind towards changing our thoughts, because our thoughts are just things. They're just energy that goes in and out of our brain. There's no evidence, there's no substance to our thoughts. But if we focus on something, it's going to amplify. So what we need to do is to gear our bodies and our minds towards thinking in abundance, thinking great things. It doesn't have to be positive things and forcing positivity, but it's how can I see the good in things? If there is a challenge or a problem, How can I look at it in a way that is an opportunity that I can learn and I can better myself? Because that's what obstacles are. The other thing that I do is cold showers, cool showers, because I'm getting to the cold showers. So that's really good to shock your body in terms of, again, it's the gratefulness as well around having warm water, clean water, all these things, but also it's the energy that it gives you in terms of what happens inside. So I'm starting that in terms of the cold showers, not quite there. So I do cooler showers. So all these things are gearing our minds in terms of thinking great things, not looking at the negative things.
There's a tendency when we hear something, as we label as bad, we say, "Well, I'm really sorry." And I wonder if there's a different way to approach that, that we listen more and we hold the space a little bit, because we rarely go to the space of, that's an interesting challenge. I wonder what it means for you and how you can, work with it. I'm just throwing some thoughts. I always, but I mean, we obviously listen and we hold the space of kindness and love, but there's a lot of, in our lives, there is less of just standing and listening and learning, and then wondering, wow, what's to gain from this? What's the power of what's going on? And I mean, I believe that there's a highest power of God that controls it all, and his purpose is always good for all of us. It's hard for us to see that in that moment, isn't it?
I think so as well. I think everything, sometimes when you are sitting there and you just think, I just need help, I'll just close my eyes and I'll just say to God, the universe, whatever our higher power is, show me the way, give me the guidance that I need to find the answer, because he knows better than we, because we are just mortals running around this earth having a great time. But there is a higher energy and frequency. And a challenge is, if we operate out of kindness and giving, you'll see how the frequency and the vibration that you live at differs. So what we radiate, we get back. And it's all guided by our higher power, whether you call it God or any other name. But that's what life is about, ultimately. It is quite simple, but I think, again, the overthinking, a lot of information out there that we don't know what to believe, we don't know what to follow, because people, especially humans, we love to be in groups. We love to be in communities. We like to feel that we belong. So another way of thinking about it is that you almost want to be involved, partake in different things, but you don't have to belong to a certain label or a certain type of way of living, because it keeps you open in life. It keeps you open to question. So these are all the thoughts that I have that I love to teach.
It keeps us open to question.
Yes.
And there are, there's God bless, namaste, inshallah. There's so many phrases we humans in our tribes have sort of practiced for thousands of years. And I think in our modern world, we've lost them or forgotten them. And there's always someone out there to connect with that will help you on that journey. To any particular books or things that you use to find that space?
Yes, I'm so happy you asked that question. I'm currently listening to Ryan Holiday, Stillness is the Key.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I listen to Audible. So I do other things while I'm listening, whether it be, and that's a way to enjoy life. Like whether you're doing a mundane task, it doesn't have to be a mundane task. So if you're washing the dishes, if you're doing housework, have an audiobook and listen to things that are actually really, really good to listen to. So stillness is the key. The key thing, and this is coming from Stoicism. So the idea that life is very, very simple. And what gets in the way is our overthinking, our cluttered environment, not being able to press that pause button, to be able to think about how we're living and then make decisions and changes based on that. So the idea about stillness. So even if I'm pausing in between when I'm talking, sometimes it can give some people a bit of feeling of, oh, she's pausing. Or sometimes it can give the other person thinking, I'm feeling calmer. Because stillness is the answer, not busyness.
And the obstacle is the way.
I love that. Was the one that I listened to
That's the
prior
other one.
to Ryan
Yeah.
Holiday. You know, all these, I love to listen to the greatest books of all time, and I put that onto Audible. So I'll have a look at what I have here. Let's see.
Because these are the critical things. And you mentioned the word mundane, yet it's my brother always says the first thing you do when you wake up, besides the gratitude, is you make the bed.
Yes.
Always
There's
make the bed
something
first.
about making the bed. There's something about having a very simple routine that sets you up for your day. There's something about having less clutter, a very simple, clean life. And that's also what we eat, by the way. That's also controlling our brain and our thoughts. That's also controlling how much shopping we do. Everything. Simplify it. Less
I
is more.
less is more. Occam's razor says the simple answer is the one, and simplicity and those mundane things are the art of life, because it's the simple things that are important. And so we have lost the focus on those simple things: the laundry, folding the clothes, cleaning the kitchen, cleaning the dishes. Um, and so we're so super focused on all of this stuff. I've got one, two, three, four, five screens in near range, for whatever reason, and because I do, and yet I was doing my pottery today. I was in my pottery
Yeah.
studio doing my cups, and I went and bought some canvas. So, but I was listening to Michelle Hearn's book, The Dietitian's Dilemma, and I love Audible, and that changed my life. I mean, I'm a voracious reader, but now I'm a voracious Audible person, and that's such a important thing, to find the zen of life in the simple things.
I think also understanding how you learn, because not everyone learns through reading. I'm a very much of an audible person. So if I hear something, I take it in a lot better than reading the actual same text or context.
I was talking to my friend this evening, and I said that we're actually oracle. Stories are what we are. Reading is not natural and normal. We've been pushed to do something. I couldn't read for my first 20 years of life, and I learned to read. But I'd tell you, my diet probably changed and made it better for sure. But I think that we are meant to listen to stories, but no one's taking the time. We don't have the amphitheater in the middle of our small tribe, the fire pit, and sitting around and listening to the ancient stories. But I think Audible is really, really, because it's relatively new for all of us, really. So books were less available to people, but I agree with you. The Audible is the game changer. There's a couple of questions, if I can, because we can. I know we could talk for hours and hours and
Yeah,
hours.
no, I was going to say that we have two ears and one mouth. So I need to use these ears more and less, because I can just talk and talk and talk. So
Well, that's an important point, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and I'll get to some of these questions in a minute. Is and I'm reminded by my partner all the time to listen, and I've been working on it. Can you help us out on that one?
well, this is another thing that I have been learning as well around when you have a conversation and you're talking to somebody, there's always two ways of communication. You're talking, then you're listening to what they're saying. So, to be able to communicate more effectively, it's important to be able to interpret and to hear what the other person is saying, not to have your own judgments, your own way of thinking, because that's how we can get a lot of things wrong, if that makes sense. That's number one, thing that I have noticed. Number two, when it comes to a heated conversation or if you're in an argument, we actually don't need to respond at that time. And if you just take a break and just say, I'm just going to excuse myself and just have some time to reflect, and that you don't have to respond in that moment. Because when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And when you speak words, those words you can never take back. They're in the universe and they're out there. So controlling the words that we say, and again, this is a habit and a practice that we have to get into. How can I even thinking, what am I about to say? Is it complaining? Is it judgment? Is it something that's going to bring positivity to that other person's life? And I'm still working on it as well, because even with my partner, I will say something and he'll say, stop complaining. And I'm like, I'm not complaining. So it's, all this is a work in progress. So
It's all
that's
work.
the way that we don't need to respond all the time. Just take a pause button and just reflect to think, how am I showing up today? Am I saying words of kindness, of affirmation and love and giving? Because that's what humans want ultimately.
Love, connection.
That's the
And
highest level of emotion, which is love. And even if, and this is a challenge as well, if somebody is not treating you well, if you're in an argument, showing up with love, it's difficult, but that's the way to change your life.
and one of the practices that I've learned over the years of reading many sages is I love you, I love you, I love you. And if that's the thoughts within the mind, you're always showing up with that. And as in listening, as you said, is such an important thing that we're all really learning. And ultimately the mind is really, I mean, the nutritional experiences we've all had and the things that we're sharing are critical, but the mind is really the true master over all of it, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. We have what's called the neurotransmitters in our brain, and it's just electrical signals and pathways. The same way that in science, if we just make a circuit, like a physical circuit that creates electricity or anything, that's the pathway of our brain, and that's how it actually works. So that's why, and it's all these loops and shortcuts that your brain wants to get to shortcut everything, to make quicker decisions, to make everything an automated process. And that's why habit changing is so difficult, because we have to rewire the way that we think, act, do, behave. And it actually takes conscious effort before it gets to the unconscious behavior.
And yet the food we eat can affect our ability to do that. And the toxins in plants and the sugars in plants and the phytochemicals and the lectins, oxalates, and phytates, and more do affect that.
Yes.
And maybe we can talk a little bit about, because there was a question about how to transition off sugar, and part of the question is, what is sugar? Where does it come from? And maybe you can lead with that and kind of go a little bit into the transitioning.
So, okay, in terms of sugar, where it comes from, so sugar is quite natural. You love cane sugar, and a few bits of cane sugar in your beautiful keto ice cream is amazing. But a little bit of cane sugar, the natural state of cane sugar. So if you were to go cut a plant or a tree or something, and a little bit of sweetness that comes out is perfectly fine. The problem is that we have a lot of processed sugar. So anything that is going from one step from when something is picked or harvested or anything like that is going to be processed. And I even go beyond to say, because there's a lot of talk about sugar, and yes, sugar is extremely pro-inflammatory. It's very addictive. But all these different things, as you extend it upon, which is nuts and seeds and grains and wheat and all those products out there, it doesn't actually do us any benefit. So what is sugar? Anything that's coming from fruit is sugar.
Or any
Anything,
plant,
anything, yeah.
essentially,
But
right? Yeah.
to really break it down to understand, because we have a label around healthy sugars or natural sugars, and we actually don't have a need biologically for sugar at all. Our brain and our body and our mitochondria, which is our energy cells, they function primarily off fat. We need protein for amino acids, which is our building blocks for growth, for skin integrity, for hair, skin, and nails. There is no inherent need for sugar or carbohydrates. So sugar, anything, fruit, grains is coming from sugar. Anything that is very, very simply, anything that's not meat, butter, eggs, and fish is most likely going to be from sugar that you shouldn't consume, apart from your nuts and seeds. You should not consume it. It's extremely pro-inflammatory in terms of what happens in the brain. So if you think about, I think that you'd ask most people around heroin, around meth, around tobacco, they'd say, that's not good. Sugar behaves in the same way as these drugs in terms of the addictive pathways in our brain. It all comes from that dopamine response. Now, in terms of our serotonin, which is another hormone, which is going to make us feel good, a lot of our serotonin, I think that we understand, is coming from our gut function. And so when we eat plants, nuts and seeds, especially sugar, alcohol, it interferes with the healthy function of our gut. So when we feel the feeling of your heart rate increasing, you can't think well, bloating, gas, all these different ailments that we have, it's coming from not having a proper human diet, which is mostly ruminant meats.
And ultimately, we didn't consume them very frequently, and it was only rarely to find a sweet fruit. But most
And
of
the
the
sweetness
fruits,
of that fruit was far less than the sweetness of the fruit that we have now.
right. So they're larger than ever been, and they're sweeter than ever been. And the majority of sugars in plants are not even sweet. They
Mhm.
essentially all plants are made of long chain carbon particles, which are carbohydrates, and they break down. And we have no requirement to eat them, which is kind
Mhm.
of interesting. But the glycobiome is glycans, which are sugars, which are made by the body, or they're actually taken from the meat we eat. So the meat and all the cells of meat, all the cells of fat cells, and all the cells of all cells, essentially all cells contain amino acids, fatty acids, and glycans, which ultimately are all you need. But the plants provide a lot of toxins, but they do provide sugar that can be converted into fat. But if we eat it from time to time, but what's our daily habit? I mean, I don't know what you grew up with, but where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Australia, but my background is Indian. So a lot of the things that I was eating was rotis, was curries, was rice. And that's what I grew up eating, along with, the processed foods that you have in Australia or Western countries. So, yeah.
Although the culprit, it's interesting, we say don't eat processed carbs, but ultimately all carbs you eat are processed in your stomach, and they all become simple sugars.
Yes.
So really, we really shouldn't divide them very much, because the fresh fruits and vegetables are potentially more toxic, in my opinion, than actually the processed simple carbs, because they contain more of the plant poisons and the antigens and the lectins and the phytates. And I know I suffered from many problems due to that for so many years.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. I mean, that's why when people think of sugar, they typically think of, again, your fruits, but also candies, cookies, pies, and cake. But if you're looking even at a starchy carbohydrate or even fibrous vegetables, it's all breaks down to the same thing, which is glucose in your body. And we don't need to ingest specific glucose in our body for energy, because as you said, that we get glucose production naturally coming from, and it's a very small amount, naturally coming from proteins and fats, but we don't need to. So glucose is not necessarily bad. It's not bad. It's actually needed for our body, but anything in excess is going to cause harm. It's specifically with insulin. That's the and other hormones as well, but that's the problem, because it's a cascade of what happens in your body when you're over ingesting something that cannot be broken down in your body. That's the problem.
Although it's if you're eating 3 meals a day, maybe you could talk a little bit about
That's another problem.
numbers of meals and proportions. I mean, there's just so
Yes.
much. So if you're transitioning off heroin, cocaine, marijuana, tobacco, or alcohol, you throw it all out and you just go buy bacon, eggs, butter, beef.
No.
Is
So, okay. The first thing the first great thing is to say that, all the wheat, grains, sugars, pasta, cereals is an addiction. It's the same bucket as heroin.
Mhm.
Because if we want to change, we really have to understand why we're changing and actually make a process, actually have a process that's going to work. Doing it overnight like I did, it doesn't, I mean, I was keto, but doing it overnight for most people is not going to work, because we're either moderators or we're abstainers. Most people fall into the bucket of moderators. The way that their behavior changes is by doing little bits over time, and then having that change that's going to instill and be permanent over time. For me, I can just go, boom, I'm going to change, and I actually do it because I have quite a extreme personality. So in terms of how to transition, first of all, it's to understand that all these junk foods out there and sugar, it's the same as heroin. I don't want that heroin. I don't want that addiction, because I think we do need to be extreme in our terminology, because it's not okay to have those foods. The same way it's not okay to have a line of Coke in front of other people. And I'm sorry if other people are going to feel like, oh, that's quite harsh in what she's saying, but it's the same mentality that we need to have to understand how toxic and harmful these sugars and these products actually are, because it's not what we need to ingest. So the first step, so I actually have a bulletproof program. It's a 20-week program. It gets people from, if you're eating standard American diet and you're eating that sugar, and if you want to go carnivore, because you don't have to go carnivore. I don't believe that it's absolutely 100% right for everybody, because we do have a life in terms of how we need to be in society. Some people might feel I cannot be zero carb, and for them, being keto is what they can handle. So it's actually having a structured program. But as an example, what this bulletproof program is giving up one least addictive food every single week. You're only focusing on that one food. And there's different food buckets that I put it into in terms of grains and sugars. Then we have to get rid of nuts and seeds and seed oils. We have to get rid of alcohol, the drinks. There's little different buckets that we have to get through to clean up our diets, and over time, actually reassessing how we are feeling. And in that, I've actually built in the fact that people are going to cheat and fail, and that's normal. You have to expect that, because if you've been doing a behavior for, let's just say, I've been doing it for 20 years, you have been doing it for 50 years, it's ingrained in our body. So to be able to be comfortable with, and it's not failure, I just said that terminology, it's a learning. It's just learning a new behavior, and you will maybe backtrack a bit, but then we're going to take steps forward. And the thing I love to say is it's progress over perfection. Because even with carnivore, and carnivore is fantastic. I love carnivore, but it doesn't mean that you need to be absolutely strict, perfect carnivore. You can do the things that are right for you, that's going to make you feel the best way. So that's how I do it in terms of full on sugar addiction, eating disorder, because can't see my hand, I was here. And where you end up is up to you, but I think you do need a structured way of even the person thinking about it. And I do believe it needs to take a bit of time. It's not something that's going to happen in a week or a month. It takes time.
And one of the good things I find is find Rina, 5 Minute Body, and watch and listen, because the more you sort of begin to dive into this world of paleo, keto, and carnivore, they're the game changers. Really, every other diet that anyone ever lists and labels is off pace, in my opinion. And carnivore is the master's class. Really,
Carnivore is the game changer.
it's a game changer. Really,
Carnivore, yeah.
everyone should be carnivore if they want to actually live and lead their very best life, because
Yes.
it's a game changer for the brain and the body. And so that's where we would sort of lead to. But so the transition, and I think most of us, and there are some, I know Bella went from vegan to carnivore pretty much overnight, and that was it. And so, it's finding the guide out there, right? Is that what you're saying? And
Yes.
where
I
you're at.
have a bit of structure. Like Bella has a steak and butter gang. Coach Raymond is amazing. And having a bit of structure around, how to do it. There's lots of tribes, and you've got a tribe as well. There's lots of coaching and lots of tribes out there. Connect with the one that you love the most and the one that you feel is the right fit, and just follow, because basically everything that we're doing is quite similar. We might have different tangents. Like, we love carnivore, we also love the mindset and faith. I love that. I think they're very much connected. Somebody else could love the carnivore and exercise and movement. Find what works for you and follow it. I think that's what's going to set you up for success.
What about those? And there was someone here that was talking about have a transection and is paralyzed for 10 years and talks about red meat and doesn't seem to agree with them. What's your thoughts on that? When something just fat or just meat, or I can't eat red meat, or it just doesn't go down.
I think I would have to ask a few more questions to understand more, because I can't give a response if I don't understand what do you mean by it doesn't agree or it doesn't go down. And I'll give you an example just for a bit of clarity. I never ate red meat prior to doing carnivore, ever. And I could say to you, it doesn't agree with me or it doesn't feel right. But the underlying root of that was I was scared of eating red meat because I thought it was bad. I never ate lamb, hardly ate beef ever. I mostly ate chicken, fish, and the white meats, egg whites as well. And even as an extension of that, eating egg yolks as well.
And for so many people, no matter where they buy meat, it's lean and they're not getting fat. And it's the fat that reduces inflammation in our mouth, our esophagus, and our stomach and beyond. And so, but then people's like, I can't chew fat. So there's a psychological component to all of this, which is partly why the coaching is so important.
Yes. Also, when you're transitioning to carnivore, so, doing the paleo, the keto, the carnivore, and then also mixing in some lean meats with the fattier meats, or having it's about getting your taste, because your taste buds are accustomed to eating fat. Because even when you're eating a lot of fat, you can feel nauseated and sick. And that's normal because your body is not used to digesting that. So we need to actually transition from eating, like a low fat or plant-based or nuts and seeds, or even, like, for example, dairy. Dairy is the same, is that some people have a big response, bloating, well, not really nausea, but like not feeling the best from dairy. Even I get acne from when I have dairy. I love cheese, but I start to get pimples. It's very frustrating because I love cheese, but I just can't have it. So but usually with most people, and I'm not going to say 100%, but most people I've worked with, ruminant meats, they're very benign in terms of any side effects. Because that's what we biologically are meant to be eating, the whole animal, nose to tail, not just picking the lean, the this or the that. It's the whole animal that we're actually eating. And eating your fattier cuts of meat is always going to be better because it's the saturated fat that we need.
Which are the ruminants that you recommend?
Lamb and beef, primarily beef. Every single influencer, carnivore, beautiful person out there is going to say, why is it on beef that I feel amazing? We don't know why. I mean, maybe you have the answer why, but I would say beef. And if you want to feel amazing, try doing beef only. So it's called the lion diet. Beef only, fattier cuts of beef. Oh, you don't need to have coffee. It's so strange.
I've been off coffee for 2 months almost, and,
Really?
yes, and I still drink out of my Kiltz cups, which are coffee cups mostly, but I've changed it a little bit. I've gotta change my lighting a little bit. Give me 1 second, all right?
Okay.
I hold on 1 second.
Okay.
I can go away because I'm running this show.
That's okay. Everyone can see my cup of coffee that I'm
Sorry about
trying
that.
to.
But I said, since I'm in charge of the technical stuff, I can get up and go do that. I could have put you alone, but I can do it.
Oh, I'm good at talk and rant. If I have somebody in front of me, I can talk and rant. But if it's just me, I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, it was so light before, and it's like, oh, I forgot to turn the lights on. But it's I do ribeye steak every day with
Yes.
butter and salt. That's primarily my nutrition. But I call the baby's way bacon, eggs, butter, beef,
Yes.
intermittently feasting and salt. Although Kiltz's ice cream from time to time, with or without sugar, and preferably vanilla bean, not the
Extract or
not
essence.
the extract, which is alcohol. And even
There's
for me,
alcohol and it's got sugar in it.
that's correct. That's right. So that's why it's not, in my opinion, it's not great. And although a simple sugar from time to time, but certainly honey and fruit every day is deadly for us because they're silent until they're not. And again, I agree with you. The lion plan or the beef, because we probably evolved over eating large ruminant fatty beef type animals, which were high in carnitine and other important nutrients. And we ate the brain, we ate the omentum, we ate the bowels, we ate the liver. And that's one of the things I had a question to you about, supplements and versus really eating the whole animal.
Well, what supplements do you need if you're getting every single nutrient from just eating the whole, let's just say you're eating the whole animal. Or if you just zero. This
Yeah.
is again, let's question, guys. Let's understand what's a supplement. It's because you're not having the proper human diet. It's because you're not actually, you know, feeding your body with nutrients. You're not having the rest. You're not moving. You're not eating in the way that we're biologically designed. We actually don't need any supplements, even when
That's
it
cool.
comes to
I
healing
mean,
disease.
we came to be who we are without supplements, and really these supplements are only within the last 100 years or far less than that. And we do sell a organ meat supplement for those that don't want to eat the organs, which I hope that they will. So things like NAC, DIM, serapeptase, Vitex, turmeric. Even turmeric is not good in my opinion. There are other plant lectins, oxalates, phytates, and other toxins that we have no idea what's in most of the plants. And I've been showing a little bit on the International Journal of Plant Poisoning, which is a United States Department of Agriculture journal, which basically they care about the damages that plants do to livestock, but we're ignoring the damages that plants do to human stock. And when we get damaged, someone makes money, but when livestock get damaged, someone loses money. So there's all this conspiracy theories and XYZ, but ultimately, if we can focus on sharing this concept of clarity and health and wellness in ways and
Absolutely. I think also, again, I come back to the questioning, question everything that you listen to. And if you're hearing something, it might not be the best thing for us, because if you listen to something out there, they're trying to sell you something. Basically, they're trying to make money off you, and they is the media and companies trying to sell you stuff that you don't need. And it's extended upon our diet, it's products, it's consumerism, it's bags, it's shoes, it's cars, it's all these things that we don't necessarily need, but it's a want to maybe complicate our lives and to make it into a vicious cycle. From that, even in my day job, so I work in a biotech company as a medical expert. Basically, I talk to doctors about immunoglobulin therapy, but I've also worked in pharmaceutical. So I've also seen a lot of the marketing strategies to push drugs, and talking about clinical studies, how they're actually funded. So a lot of them are funded actually by pharmaceutical companies to sell you a drug so they can make money, because we're living in a capitalist society. Even looking at the food pyramid in the late 80s, in terms of where that came from. And the bottom of the food pyramid is grains. And why is it grains and vegetables and fruits and low fat? It's because you can create products that you can sell to people to make money. But even as you would know, that from the 80s, what's happened in terms of our health, obesity, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, have all increased. Associated with that, mental illness and disease has skyrocketed.
maternal mortality is on the rise, huge, a
Yes,
significant, and we're ignoring the causes. And the sad part is that the medical community, where our job is we've been trained, and the oath is to help and relieve people of the disease, but in actuality, our recommendations are the cause of disease.
it's our lifestyle as well that's the cause of the disease. And then you're putting something on top which is already toxic, which is just going to make it more toxic. So if you already have a disease from eating, for example, let's just say it's plant toxins, or maybe you've been smoking, it's the alcohol, it's the drugs, it's the addictions. So you're already in a toxic state. Then you pop on a pill on top of that. A pill or a pharmaceutical drug is toxic. So
Well, they
you're
come from
adding on
plants.
layers. Exactly. So you're adding on layers and layers of toxins. You need to strip all that away and actually get to the root cause of the problem. And even, doing this idea of a dopamine detox, which is stripping your life down to the bare necessities, which is what we need to eat, what we are consuming. So we need to be creating, as you do with your pottery, create less consumption, more creation. Talk to people. Don't look at, like, for example, with like social media. All these are getting to the bare necessities of what we actually need to have a happy life. And that's what actually matters.
Right. So sometimes the discussion, or I'm going to use the word argument, of the why part of it also gets us out of in the distraction of the focus of it's simple, right? It's change your thoughts, focus on faith and kindness and generosity and giving, and look at carnivore and as a better way of eating. What's your shopping list?
Oh, ground beef. Okay, I love bacon, beef, butter, and eggs. I also do heavy cream in my coffee. But I absolutely love ground beef and my air fryer. I can eat, and Redmond's real salt. I can eat the same thing. I eat twice a day. I eat the same thing day in, day out. Now, why I love what I do is because, practically speaking, we have families, we have partners, and we have friends. So Carnivore is very, very simple. but there can be a bit of obstacles in the way, because when you have other people that don't eat a carnivore way, how do we live and associate and socialize with them? So that's where I'll have maybe a little bit of variation depending on who I'm around. Like if you're traveling, if you go for work, it can get a little bit more, how do you eat a carnivore way? But me personally, I just love ground beef. I can just eat like I'm
But
salivating. I
so
love ground
do you add fat or butter to your ground beef, or do you make sure you buy it in a way that is already packed with fat?
So the ground beef that I buy is 80/20. So I already know that it's 80/20 beef. Sometimes I have a feeling that I just want that taste of butter or some eggs. I don't have the egg whites, I have the egg yolks. I might have 1 or 2 egg yolks on top, but predominantly it's the ground beef. It's the 80/20. So if you buy a packet of ground beef, if you go to your butcher, you just ask for 80/20 at least. Even 70/30, if they can do it, is delicious.
Or so 70% protein or 80% protein and the other fat? Is that the component, or the other way around?
No, the other way around.
So fat, say 80% fat and which
Oh,
actually
sorry, no. The other way. My
right. Yeah,
brain is
yeah.
not working. Sorry. It's 20 to 30% fat, 70 to 80% protein. Now, I know the question that some people might have, because I've got this in terms of how do you know the fat to protein ratio? Because it's 80% protein, 20% fat. But when you look at the macronutrients of it in terms of how much the percentage is, it's going to be 70 to 80% fat in terms of the actual grams of fat
The
and how that
calories.
equates. Calories. I don't like to say calories, but because I don't think that we should measure calories. Yeah.
But you want, I mean, ultimately, a keto and a paleo is a 70 to 80% of your calories from fat, and then the remainder from protein and carbs. The beauty of carnivore, technically, it's all from meat, and so you're getting your calories. What I don't even know what a calorie is. I agree, because
I try not to use that word, because as soon as you say calories, the extension of that is portion sizes, is grams, is too much thinking.
yeah, I don't know what a gram is. I know, it's sort of, I always say I eat a fistful of meat every day. That's
Me
it.
too.
And it's
Yes,
a
yes,
fistful. And now
yes.
I eat one meal a day, and occasionally I'll do a meal and a snack, but 99% it's one meal a day at night. And my bias is that fasting is really great for us. I do a few 2-day fasts and a few 3-day fasts, but I don't think that's so critical. I think as long as you're eliminating a significant portion of the plants. I mean, I do French fries from time to time, and I do my ice cream a little bit more time to time, but it's still I think a little simple sugar is better than complex carbohydrates, because the complex carbs take longer to digest. That means you're secreting sugars in your bloodstream longer, and it contains all those toxins and things like that. So
I think it's good to try it, try a bit of simple, pure sugar. Again, sugar is not bad. It's not. I know it's very controversial to say that it's absolutely bad. If you have a little bit of sugar once a month, once a year, you're not going to die from it. So enjoying life as well. So adding a little bit of sugar in a keto or a carnivore ice cream where it's heavy fat. So the reason why even you love your fries is because you put lots, because I know you put a lot of fat on it.
yeah, sour cream and mayonnaise and salt. And I
Yeah,
cook it
yeah,
in duck grease and
yeah,
really crispy. And so
yeah,
it's a simple sugar, and
yeah,
it has no fiber based
yeah.
on where I'm at.
But that's the way that you enjoy life as well, because you're not just having your ribeyes and OMADs every single day. You're like, hey, I'm inviting these people over. I'm going to have, the thing that I love, but I'm going to make it the best way that I can, load it up with fat, because
But
that's what's going to keep you satiated as well.
some people are coming from an addicted transition where any bit of it is really going to be a challenge. So we need to honor, those people are like, oh no, I can't touch it at all. And for me, I don't know if I'll go back to coffee or when I will. I personally do a little bit of alcohol, very minimally, maybe twice a month. But I think each person has to find for themselves where they're at. If that personality is like, I just have to, I can't. You got to make sure it's not around at all. Um,
I was that type of person. I had severe sugar addiction where, even not just sugar, but just excess. I could have a whole jar of peanut butter. I'm talking a whole jar of peanut butter. When it comes to honey, anything sweet, my brain would just go bing, and it's like the floodgates open, and I get hungry. I've eaten a lot of food, but I can't stop eating. But through doing this journey, and I can attribute it to carnivore, because when you have that period of time that you're strict carnivore and you eat a lot of fat, when you eat the sugar, you get a very negative response. And if you've had a lot of fat a lot of the time, you can't have that much sugar. And I'm coming from severe sugar addiction, restriction, eating disorder, over exercising. And I can say that. And I never thought that I would get there. But it's not to say that I eat sugar once a week or once a month. It's extremely infrequent.
will you get to a point where you think you might eat a little bit more, or you just and I know for me, I just lost the, especially with coffee, I just lost the taste after about a week, and it's just like, okay, I don't need it anymore.
I think everything is a process of looking back in terms of your habits,
Mm.
because nothing is just set in stone that, oh, this is the way. You always have to reassess. And it's not just diet, it's your thoughts, it's your movement patterns, it's everything to say, okay, how are we going? All right, I had a bit of sugar. Now, am I wanting to have it every week, every day? Same with coffee. Do you need to have it every single day? Is it detrimental to your health? Are you having 2 or 3 cups a day? So it's that kind of sticky point around what is right for you. But starting with that elimination, because how do you know how you feel unless you've eliminated all the addictions and gone through a really good period? I'm not talking 30 days. I'm talking at least 90 days. It takes time. It takes time to actually strip away all these toxins and addictions to understand how you feel. And then it's all a trial and error process.
So ultimately, our challenge is we really don't know how good we can feel because we're all drugged out,
Yeah.
essentially. I mean,
Yeah.
plants
we're-
are herbal medicines and pharmaceuticals. They're all the same. We're drugged. Heroin,
Yes.
cocaine, marijuana, nicotine, caffeine are all drugs
Yes.
that affect
Alcohol.
our
Yes.
all of it in alcohol. And
Yes.
so, and we make alcohol through fermentation in our gut. That's the leading cause of all disease, I believe,
Yes.
along with the sugar. And so, yeah, it's sharing something about, wow, those people of, I mean, I didn't know that I had hay fever, and I know I had migraines, and I didn't know that this was it's abnormal to feel this way until I learned first paleo, then keto, then carnivore, and then I did it almost 12 years ago, and it's like, whoa, a game changer. And even off coffee for 49, 50 days, 49 days today, it's like, wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I, I'm not. I get coffee with cream or butter, but like it is a plant chemical and it does have caffeine, and there's an effect on it. But we each to find our own set point in all of this. But I think that's what you're saying. It's when you get to the point where it's like, whoa, I feel so great. You don't need psilocybin or ayahuasca or marijuana.
And the other thing is that when you go really pure, and now you've inspired me to get rid of coffee again, because I did it for a bit, and then it's just the taste. It's just the taste that I enjoy. But again, it's questioning it as well. It's like, well, do I enjoy the taste? Because when you first started drinking coffee, and let's just say it's black coffee,
It,
I
it
hated
is.
it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It was terrible.
But I took it as a drug. I took it to either stay awake during medical school. That's when I really got addicted to it. But even before that, I took it to help me go poo poo. And, it helps, right? And so, ultimately, we're using it as a drug. And
Yeah.
so I've had problems with trigger finger, and I can tell you off the coffee, and it's amazing now,
Yes.
and it's nearly gone,
Yeah.
and so
Especially if you have a heightened sympathetic nervous system. For somebody that's a bit more, let's just say that you feel a bit more anxious or nervous, that feeling, coffee is what's going to make you feel even more, that feeling of um, not quite calm and relaxed. Because it's interesting when you go full elimination, and let's just say that you're just doing beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, you're doing your baby diet, but not with the sugar. And then you do that elimination process, you actually have more energy. You sleep less because you're getting more restful sleep. And interestingly, you get more done.
I am much more prolific in the things that I'm doing. I go to bed at 9 p.m. I wake up at 3 a.m. I do my morning either ride or row and some resistance work, and then I'm live at 5 a.m. every day, and I'm motivated to do so much more, and it feels amazing. I'm 66. I've never felt better in my life. I feel younger every day. I feel about 16. And what are your thoughts on exercise?
Yes, what a great question. Right. So 20 years ago, I was on the treadmill an hour and a half every single day. If I didn't go to the gym, I would get scared that either I haven't burnt calories, I haven't exercised. It was like a must. And because I was obsessed with being skinny, body image issues, all this kind of thing. Now, transitioning to now, I, when I coach my clients, I am not talking about exercise. I'm changing the word. I'm talking about movement. So whether it be standing, and I know that you just like to get your weights and lift heavy things, and it's about movement. Let's get away from structured exercise. Let's get into more movement, which is playing with your kids, lifting heavy things, squatting, all these movement patterns, which is squat, lunge, deadlift,
Move,
um, move. Yeah.
move, move.
But what's also important is strengthening your body as well. So doing these primal patterns, which as a tribe we used to sit and squat, or we could lunge. It's our gait pattern. It's our pushing. It's our pulling. All these things in a fun way. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be in the gym that you're pulling a machine. So the answer to that question is that let's move. Let's not do structured exercise. It's a different way of thinking, but it's very effective. So me personally, I will just do, not every day, but I'll just do a 5 or 10 minute HIIT workout, meaning that I'll get my interval timer. Sometimes I might do 30 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and I will just do a full body movement pattern, squatting, lunging, pulling, pushing, using my own body weight most of the time because I do it anywhere, anytime. I don't want to feel that I'm restricted, that I need special equipment. Then I have a little dog. I'll play with him.
Uh-huh.
I'll go for long walks with my partner. And all these things is part of our life.
Yes,
That's
it
how I
is.
move.
So I agree with you because I mean, I do my light bike ride for 15 minutes. I don't go fast. I do my light rowing. I don't do heavy weights. But I noticed that over the years because I did not exercise for 10 years, and I my strength. I know. I mean, I did things, but I've lost a little bit. But also the stretching I think is really good
Yes.
because you have to stretch, and that's where yoga and Pilates and just stretching. All you need to do, but it's group work. That's what we're really talking about.
Yes.
Getting in that group. We're not knitting or sewing or spinning yarn and doing the things that we did for thousands of years. Where all that stuff is done for us.
Yes.
So we're now just left with watching Dr. Kiltz and Rina Ahluwalia on YouTube and Facebook and wherever, and
Yeah.
learning some interesting conversations.
But what's also interesting about exercise is I want to get this really clear. And I was talking to Vinnie Tortorich and so many other people as well. And I love to make this very clear. Exercise is a terrible way to achieve fat loss. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But what it's great for is BDNF in your brain. So why is it that when we exercise, and this is again talking to people, they need to exercise because it makes me feel good. I feel great because your body releases chemicals, neurotransmitters when you're actually exercising, and it's BDNF in your brain and it's a dopamine response. So when you exercise, understand that it is going to make you mentally sharper. It's going to give you it's going to make you feel great. It's also going to strengthen you. But exercise, it does not achieve fat loss. Fat loss, it comes primarily from what you're eating and you're sleeping and what you're thinking about.
Eat fat, get skinny. But skinny is deadly. You don't want to be skinny, by the way,
Yeah.
because
No.
this is really important. So, number one, your size doesn't matter. I tell everyone, whatever size you are is perfect. You need to find love in that. The
Yeah.
diseases are caused by our diet, and nothing else.
Yes.
That's it.
But even challenging that, like eat a carnivore diet
Uh,
and you will notice that you'll get to your optimal weight.
Oh,
Whatever that optimal weight is, you will.
well, but the interesting part is that we're actually geared to get fat for the famine, which seasonally happened every year. And so it's important to be a certain amount of fat in order to get fertile and pregnant. And
Yeah.
when you're pregnant, being fat actually allows you to survive the first trimester, which has a lot of nausea and vomiting, which says do not eat those plants because they want to kill you. So it's protective mechanisms that we're ignoring the simplicity of what this amazing human body is.
Absolutely. But even talking about the word fat, I'm sure that we're not talking about obese or morbidly obese. We're talking about something that might be, in terms of pounds, how much heavier are we talking about? 10,
I
20,
I
30
no, I
pounds?
don't even know that answer because polar bears, they must gain a significant weight to have 3 babies, a little less for 2 and a lot less for and then less for 1. So, I don't know that we understand that because ultimately it all depends on our historic famines, how long we went without food. That's all
Mhm.
it matters. And women do gain more weight because likely when they must survive their fertile time, and many animals don't eat at all throughout their pregnancy. They don't eat, they don't piss, they don't poop, and they don't drink. Yet they grow a term pregnancy that has all the natural parts that are needed to function. And so we just don't know a thing about what's the right weight or nutrition. We do not know anything. And
Well,
so the
based
heart
on the evidence, it's all rubbish and it's all garbage based on if somebody actually looked at, if you're not in the industry or if you're not a doctor, I think a lot of doctors don't quite understand it, what the basis of these studies are is either where the funding comes from, the methodology in terms of how it's actually, studied or following these people and how you measure it, like qualitative analysis, quantitative, food questionnaires. That's just talking about the actual food science. But if you're talking about pharmaceuticals, it's a whole nother thing, which is really like you're basing, guidelines that is for what people should be eating based on crap. I'm not going to swear, but crap. Seriously.
well, you
Like
don't
yeah, go on.
oh, I was going to say that the science is the snake oil. I mean,
Yes.
ultimately, the science is making us think. When you hear the word science, it makes you think, well, there's some knowledge behind this, and some really smart experts have given us some information that is true. But
Yes.
ultimately, science is mostly snake oil because most science is only theories of truth, but not
Yes.
truth. There's only one truth.
Yes. So in terms of research and clinical papers, you have a hypothesis. And usually when you have researchers or when you have scientists, a lot of it comes down to funding, a lot of it comes down to publishing research, and there is an emphasis on publishing a certain amount of papers or research every year and that kind of thing. So even when it comes to, the way that they design studies, it's not based on, it's all kind of man-made. So when you have this fictional man-made placebo-controlled randomized, maybe it's a single arm study, washout periods, all these things that most people might not understand. Even looking at the power of a study to understand how many people are needed in a study to power it for significance, meaning it's a clinical difference, a clinical outcome. Again, how do we even know that? We don't know, because we're trying to make these arbitrary parameters to make a conclusion and a hypothesis. And we're basing food guidelines and our life based on this. But the outcome that we can see in terms of how somebody looks, feels, and behaves has become progressively worse. So questioning the science and exactly what you said in terms of, well, science is snake oil, but it goes against what most people are saying. So unless you're in the industry, you don't really understand the full extent of it.
Well, my sense, even for BDNF and or the mTORs and all these theoretical concepts are distracting, because you don't need any of them, and whether or not it's true is still a question. We just think it's true because you know that by simply eating fatty meat, you feel best. And by eating fatty meat, you actually protect the glycobiome of the bowels. Fat suppresses the microbiome. The microbiome is a killer. It is not good for us. We have been led astray. Taking probiotics is deadly. And sugars are for glycosylation. They're critical, but they're not for ATP production directly, because sugars and amino acids must be converted to fat in the liver via insulin, or you die. And it's sort of the I see the biggest problem with science is once you think
Absolutely.
it's absolutism, and that's sort of it. And now we're all arguing over this or that, and whether the microbes or supplements, or how many meals you need to eat. You feel the very best if you can go day 2 or 3 without food. That is actually the because now you've emptied the bowels, you've allowed the glycobiome to heal, the epithelial cells to heal, and now you're protecting the insides, because the bowels are really just an extension of the outside, and
Yes.
it's trying to keep things outside and allow things inside. But we've killed ourselves through this modern nutritional science and health and wellness. And I agree with you. Exercise is my number 5 deadliest things to do.
Well,
Besides,
forced exercise, even the word exercise, like what is that? Like, have you ever gone to a gym and look at who's working out? And we look better than them. Like, have you got a gym membership?
no.
Neither do I. But
That's a lie. That's a lie. I have a membership to a club that happens to have a gym that I go and ride my bike, or but although at the beach, I'm always riding my bike here and just on the roads and on the
yeah,
sidewalks and things. So,
but
uh,
majority of the time, and this costs money as well. So
well,
you can be
and thank you for taking some extra time, Rena. I'm really, really grateful.
welcome. Sorry,
I,
I didn't even see the
I,
time. I'm
I,
having a
I,
blast.
well, I am too. And the conversations are critical. So many people, I know for myself, I would listen and listen and listen and try to figure it out. I realized that keto, I say keto is dead. Keto and paleo are just labels that are theoretical nature. I don't think they're important. I don't measure ketones, and I don't think it's critical in
Same.
all of this.
Absolutely. I get that question a lot around, why are you measuring ketones? Ketones is not even directly affected just from your diet. It's other things as well. So why are you measuring it?
And you always have them in there. That's the interesting
Yeah.
part in all of this. And there's a pancreatic tumor. Can you go carnivore if someone has pancreatic? I mean, I say cancer is caused by sugars, and by going carnivore and fasting, you can reduce your cancer progression potentially, and potentially allow your body to heal it.
I think it's a tricky situation when it comes to cancer, disease, and understanding, is something going to heal it? The answer is we don't know. So somebody might go to you, Dr. Kiltz, because you're a doctor and might feel a bit more confident with what you have to say. With somebody else, they might not feel as confident. I think what it comes down to is trial and error. But when you eliminate toxins, when you eliminate everything that's going to destroy your gut and your cells, your body is going to heal. What we do know from a lot of anecdotal evidence, also from evolution, which is 3 million years, carnivore or eating ruminant fatty meats is exceptionally healing. Exceptionally healing. And when it comes to cancer, cancer thrives on sugar. Cancer is an abnormal duplication of cells stimulated by sugar.
Otto Warburg 100 years ago actually that hypothesis received a Nobel Prize on that one, that sugars damage the mitochondria die, the cell dies. Some cells are able to make ATP through a pathway through fermentation. Those few cells survive, and they essentially are cancer. Interesting enough, the glycans are the labels for cancer cells, because sugars damage the natural glycans of the cells, and that's the problem. And the glycans are on every cell membrane of the cell, the outer membrane, the nuclear membrane, the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus. And it's interesting. See, the problem that people were having about these microbes and the microbiome is that we're only studying it under a standard keto diet, but ultimately, even microbes will ferment amino acids. So the challenge is we don't fast. We don't fast, and so the microbes are there, but I don't think that they're the ones that are saying to the brain that you should do this or that. I say it's the glycomes. The glycome is it. The sugars are the barcode of the body. The
Mhm.
glycans, glucose,
Yes.
galactosamine, and acetylglucosamine, and galactosamine, and they're all the barcode that basically are the labels for every neurotransmitter, every hormone, every cell, every immune cell in our bodies. And that's kind of, I mean, really, I'm not putting science down. I'm a
Neither am
scientist,
I. Yeah.
but and I love the science. That's why I question, well, if sugar's the why would sugar be the energy for the mitochondria 1 minute and then fat the next? Does that make any sense?
And also what we're hearing, right, everything is around insulin, and insulin is the problem. Well, I don't think absolutely insulin is the absolute problem. I think that we don't need to control these or have this latest thing that's the problem. Like even intermittent fasting is a label now. We're natural. So all these things that if you hear about it, just question it. Okay, is insulin the problem? Insulin. Is glucose the problem? No, your body actually needs glucose and needs insulin, but we
But
don't need it
consume
anymore.
Right. So,
Sorry?
to me, I agree with you. By the way, so to me, insulin is not the problem. Sugars are consumed sugars. And
Correct.
really, all you need to say is it's actually plants. You can eliminate the word sugars. You just say consumed plants. Anything, a seed, a nut, a fruit, a fiber, a vegetable, a leaf, is actually the deadly thing. And
Yes.
I think that insulin's job is to make fat. It's as simple as that. And the liver makes fat, because a liver failure patient becomes emaciated with no fat, and a type 1 diabetic becomes emaciated with no fat.
I was
So
just going
that
to say that. So insulin is actually needed. Like
it's
it's actually
critical,
needed.
but it's critical to convert amino acids and simple sugars in the liver to fat. If you
Mhm.
don't eat fat, which no one eats fat, that's our problem, right? No one eats fat because we're taught that fat is deadly to eat. But ultimately, the problem is plants. They're the predators. They actually control us, kill us, make us fertilizer, control us to plant them and do everything with them. And
The
then
other problem along with the plant and also the way that we're eating is also the way that we're living, which is limited sunlight exposure, blue light. So all these things which also affect our hormones as well, along with what we're eating as well. And that can also cause disease, because disease is not is dis-ease. So you're not in a homeostasis type of environment. So improving all these different things, it's just naturally how we're meant to be living from an evolution point of view. It's quite simple when you actually think about it. How much walking was our ancestors doing? Lifting
lots.
heavy things when they need to. How often were they outdoors? Having UVA, having UVB, especially even now we're wearing sunscreen. All these things, but we need sunlight exposure and we need some UVA, UVB for vitamin D production. Why do we have constant low vitamin D? From that, we need B vitamins, which is where B vitamins can also come from vitamin D as well. All these different things, and that's why I said it's not just carnivore diet. It's a whole lifestyle change. But carnivore diet is a great blueprint to eat from, the ruminant meats, but also how we move, getting outside and playing, and having a happy life. And your disease is going to heal
We're
overall.
focused too much on food as entertainment, not
Yes,
simply the energy like you're fueling your Ferrari, which is the energy to keep going and doing the work. And I say work, creativity, motion, and the grounding, as Tony says, we need to be grounding with the Mother Earth, right?
absolutely.
And the Father, Son, and all of that is getting out and connecting and putting a simple smile on our faces and enjoying. So, Rina, God bless you and thank you for coming on and sharing this hour and a half
Oh,
with
you're
everyone.
most welcome.
Best place for people to find you.
5minutebody.com, 5 Minute Body on YouTube and Instagram.
And what's your sort of what's the dream? But do you have any particular dream of where you're going with your carnivore and helping people heal and find a better method of enjoying life?
I think the main thing is for people just to follow a very simple lifestyle, a minimal lifestyle, and just live a happy life. Just, so much joy, so much happiness from less. Less is more, and stillness is the key.
Thank you. I so appreciate you, and all the best each and every day. And God bless. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Lots of great questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, but check out Dr. Kiltz's Mighty Tribe at 5 a.m. every day Eastern Time, U.S. time. But wherever you're in this world, God bless and enjoy. Thank you, Rina.
Bye. Thank you.